You know, with Mortal Kombat having such a major reputation, you can say its status in the video game world is legendary. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel and another entry in my Mortal Kombat review series. Today we're talking about the direct-to-video animated film from last year, Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this film were, if you already saw it or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my channel out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. But let's jump right into it and let's talk about Scorpion's Revenge. This focuses on Hanzo Hasashi, who loses his clan, family, and his life during an attack by rival ninja clan, the Lin Kuei. However, now under the name Scorpion, he's given the chance to compete in an interdimensional tournament to save his loved ones, while other fighters try to save the Earthrealm from annihilation. So, even though this was just released last year, as with my other reviews of older films, this will contain spoilers. So, if you haven't seen Scorpion's Revenge, this is your spoiler warning. Go watch the movie, then come back to this. But anyway, here we go. This is directed by Ethan Spalding, who also worked extensively as a director and storyboard artist for Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it was released in 2020, and my channel was up and running by this point, but I didn't cover it. Mainly because I generally don't keep up regularly with Warner Brothers direct-to-video animated movies. Now, I don't have anything against them, it's mainly just due to the fact that there's so many, and they're cranked out pretty frequently, between their DC animated films, their Scooby-Doo movies, and their Tom and Jerry movies. It's almost like they become the new Disney Toon Studios, where Disney was non-stop cranking out those direct-to-video sequels in the 90s and 2000s. So it's difficult to keep up with all those in addition to everything else. But I've heard a number of them have been pretty good, and this seems to be one of the better received ones. And it's not hard to see why. According to reports at the time, it appears that the main reason this was made was to build up some anticipation for the upcoming reboot, though this is completely standalone and has nothing to do with that live-action film. But what this will have in common with the reboot is something that neither of the original two live-action movies had, and that's going for a hard R rating. This movie is absolutely bloody and violent, with brutal fight scenes and kill sequences. Whereas the first two movies tried appealing to all audiences with its PG-13 rating and shied away from getting too graphic, this doesn't hold back whatsoever, keeping in the spirit of the original games. As the title suggests, Scorpion, voiced by his regular voice actor in the games, Patrick Seitz, is our main character, now given a tragic backstory that does take its cues from other, more established heroes in films, where we see how his whole family was murdered, and he's, also as the title suggests, now out for revenge against the men who killed him. It's a little familiar, but it gives us enough to work with that it makes us care, and it's presented in such a way that it does leave an emotional impact, with the death scenes early on being pretty graphic, hitting you kinda hard. Now, once we get past that initial setup, we then get introduced to our other main characters, and all the other familiar faces begin popping up. And something I noticed pretty quickly once it shifts gears is that it actually follows a number of similar beats as the original live-action movie. It's once again a tournament hosted by Shang Tsung. Raiden can't participate in the tournament, so he gets Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, and Johnny Cage to participate. We also see Kano here, as well as Goro, Kitana, and Sub-Zero. Pretty much outside of Reptile, everyone who was in that first live-action movie is back for this. And while it's not advertised this way, as there really are some key differences, this essentially turns into an unofficial hard R remake of the original 1995 film, just with Scorpion being the one we follow the most, as opposed to Liu Kang, who was more of the protagonist in the original. Now, Liu Kang here is actually one of the less developed characters, mainly just known as a protege of Raiden, as opposed to him having the tragic backstory in the original where Shang Tsung murdered his brother. And while he's seen throughout the film, I'd say there's more screen time dedicated to Sonya and Johnny Cage this time. Sonya is voiced by Jennifer Carpenter here, and her storyline's roughly the same as the original, with her pursuing Kano, who does pop up here, voiced by Robin Atkin Downes, who also is a regular of the DC animated movies, though her storyline's slightly expanded upon, as this is also about her proving herself as a fighter, and her partner Jax is now given a much bigger role here, actually participating in the tournament. Meanwhile, Johnny Cage is voiced by Joel McHale in what was easily my favorite casting choice here. And whereas in the original, his motivations were more about him being the one to prove himself, here he just thinks he's signing on to a new movie, and he becomes the comedic relief, with even Raiden commenting that he was partially motivated to choose Cage as he'd find it humorous, which does keep in line just a bit with the more casual portrayal of Raiden by Christopher Lambert in the original live-action movie. We also do get introduced to a few characters here that were not present in the original film, such as Quan Chi and Shinnok, along with the aforementioned Jax having a bigger part. And while I said this does hit some familiar beats in this tournament as the first movie, some of them are slightly reworked or reordered, with characters like Kano and Sub-Zero making it much closer to the end than their live-action counterparts. And it all moves pretty quickly. This is only an 80-minute movie, and it flies by. I never once felt like I was bored with this film, and it's partially due to just how well done a lot of these fights were. Because when it comes down to it, that's why we ultimately want to watch a Mortal Kombat movie. And as I said, they deliver on these fights. We get them at a pretty frequent pace, and they're choreographed well, and thanks to the top-notch sound mixing, whenever anyone lands a punch, we can just feel how harsh they are. And all of it's brought to life by some really stunning animation, which was probably one of my favorite things about this movie. I mean, even though it's just a direct-to-video film, the animation quality is so pristine and bursting with color that it would easily be worth watching on the big screen. Some of the images felt truly cinematic at times, which I was shocked but pleasantly surprised by. Now, as for criticisms, I'd say while I enjoyed the film overall, I think the first half is definitely much better than the second half. Not that the second half completely loses me or anything, I just say that it does lose a little bit of its focus towards the end. While Scorpion's the title character here, and he is the primary focus of the first half, he does get a little lost in the shuffle at times among all the other characters in the second half, and it becomes just another group effort. Which is fine, and it's not like we don't see Scorpion's arc all the way through, and I am glad they do try giving more attention to everyone else, especially as I said earlier, Liu Kang in particular was barely the focus for most of the film. I just say that the way it jumped around though, it felt a little all over the place. And I feel the way Scorpion's story was built up in the first half, I don't think it had quite as big of an impact because it was just one of many things going on in that finale. Plus, regarding Johnny Cage thinking that he's just in a movie, that does get stretched out way longer than it should have. It's very funny at first, but he says it even once we're at the halfway point. Like he's witnessing limbs getting ripped off and people getting mauled, and maybe after the first couple of times he sees it, okay, but his response that everything must be special effects does become a bit unbelievable when he's continuing to say it halfway through the movie, maybe even a little more than that. He does come around once he's actually fighting, but it's still a little later than he should have realized. Now, I don't know if there are any plans to continue a Mortal Kombat animated universe, the same way that Warner Bros. Does for DC and some of their other bigger properties. I know Jeremy Adams, who wrote the screenplay for this, said he would be interested in expanding upon this world, and it does set things up in the end for a sequel, similar to the first film, as we get an appearance by Shao Kahn, who makes preparations to invade Earthrealm. But nothing's set in stone yet as to what will happen exactly. As I said, I know this is completely separate from the live-action reboot, but if I had to speculate, I'd imagine we'll have to wait and see how that does, and that may set things in motion for Warner Brothers to want to do more on the animation side as well. And I would be okay with that if they were to continue with this, because if this is any indication of what future animated projects would be like, I definitely find myself looking forward to them. Scorpion's Revenge was a nice surprise. What could have easily been just a shameless cash-in actually turns out to be everything Mortal Kombat fans wanted. It goes all in on its R rating, with tons of brutal fight scenes brought to life by some really solid animation. And while it does follow a number of the same beats as the original live-action movie, it does expand upon a few things and does a good job of keeping things open to a potential animated movie universe. Hopefully, more of Mortal Kombat's movies will be something like this. Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge gets a 7.5 out of 10. And that's that for all the older Mortal Kombat movies. Up next will be my review of the newest film, just titled Mortal Kombat, and that'll be followed by a ranking of all 4 films, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let me know, did you see Scorpion's Revenge, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like this more than the live-action movies? Do you have a favorite of Warner Bros. Direct-to-video films? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.